He faked my terminal illness to propose to his CEO's daughter, so I sent her dad the 4K video. I was sitting in the dark with a $300 bottle of vintage 1996 Bordeaux in one hand and my thumb hovering over the send button to a corporate board of directors, waiting to destroy my husband's life. He thought I was just his oblivious wife, safely tucked away at 722 Mariposa Way, apartment 12B, while he played billionaire bachelor on the other side of the country. He was about to find out that dead women make terrible victims. The entire collapse of my 8-year marriage started on a mundane Tuesday evening, driven by the simple fact that I am, and always have been, the planner of our relationship. Mark was the charisma, the executive sales director who could talk a starving dog off a meat truck, but I was the infrastructure. I managed the shared calendars, the utility bills, the primary email accounts, and the meticulously organized spreadsheets that kept our lives running. I was sitting at our reclaimed oak dining table, the glow of my laptop screen illuminating the dark room, hunting for the perfect glass-domed chalet in the Swiss Alps for our upcoming 10th anniversary. I had 12 tabs open, comparing flight prices and excursion packages, entirely absorbed in building a romantic fantasy for a man who didn't exist. A notification pinged in the upper right corner of my screen. It was an automated email from Airbnb. The subject line read, "Please review your recent stay in the Catskills." My brow furrowed. I leaned closer to the monitor, the blue light reflecting in my eyes. The Catskills? I hadn't been to upstate New York in over 2 years, and the last time I used Airbnb was for a girl's trip to Austin 6 months prior. Assuming it was a phishing scam or a simple algorithmic glitch, I clicked the link, expecting it to redirect me to a dead page. Instead, it opened the official Airbnb portal, logged directly into our shared account. The account linked to my primary Gmail and my corporate, Premier, credit card. There was a pending review waiting for my approval. It was from a superhost named Ingrid, who owned a secluded, $800 a night romantic glass cabin nestled deep in the Catskill Mountains. My eyes scanned the dates of the stay, October 12th through the 15th. The heat drained from my face, pooling somewhere in my stomach. Those were the exact dates of Mark's Executive Sales Summit in Chicago. I remembered those dates with perfect clarity because I had packed his suitcase. I had ironed his favorite charcoal suit. I had driven him to the airport and kissed his cheek at the departure curb. I moved my mouse to read Ingrid's glowing, 5-star review. The words on the screen seemed to blur and sharpen, vibrating with a toxic energy. Mark was an absolute dream guest. 5 stars across the board. A special shout out to his lovely wife, Chloe. I've never had guests leave the kitchen so spotless after a 4-course birthday dinner. You two lovebirds are welcome back anytime. I stopped breathing. The silence in the apartment suddenly felt heavy, pressing against my eardrums. I read the sentence again, and a 4th time. My name is Caitlin. I do not go by Chloe. I do not have a nickname. A cold, electric shock fired down my spine, replacing the initial confusion with a sharp, crystalline dread. I felt the heat rising in my neck, and my vision went blurry with rage as my fingers clamped down on the edge of the dining table. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt an entirely different biological response taking over, the slow, methodical awakening of absolute survival instinct. I clicked away from the review and navigated straight to the Airbnb message history. My hand trembled so violently that I misclicked twice before finally opening the thread between Mark and Ingrid. The messages dated back 3 weeks prior to the Chicago trip. "Hi Ingrid," Mark's message began. "I'm looking for something truly spectacular. It's a very special weekend for us. Do you offer any sort of special proposal package? I need rose petals, lots of candles, and if possible, can you source a bottle of vintage 1996 Bordeaux? It's her birth year." I tasted copper in the back of my throat. Proposal package. 1996 Bordeaux. He wasn't just sleeping with another woman. He was practicing a second marriage. He was actively building a completely separate life while coming home every night, eating the dinners I cooked, and sleeping in the bed we bought together. I needed to know how he funded this. Mark's personal accounts were tied to mine, and I monitored our joint savings like a hawk. I clicked on the billing tab for the reservation. The receipt loaded, displaying the last 4 digits of the payment method, 4118. My stomach plummeted. That was my corporate, Premier, credit card. The one my company issued me strictly for high-level client expenses, which I kept tucked in the back of my leather folio. I scrambled to open a new tab, my fingers flying aggressively across the keyboard as I logged into the American Express portal. The loading wheel spun for 3 agonizing seconds before my recent transaction history populated the screen. There was the $2,400 charge to Airbnb, and directly beneath it, processed 2 days before the trip, was a charge that made the room spin. $5,200 paid to a bespoke diamond jeweler in Manhattan. He hadn't just used my card to fund his infidelity. He had embezzled from my employer to buy an engagement ring for a woman named Chloe. My career, my reputation, my financial security. He had weaponized all of it to finance his betrayal. smile. The sheer audacity of it was suffocating. He was so confident in my blind trust, so arrogant in his assumption that I would never audit a card I rarely used, that he left a digital trail a mile wide. But that wasn't the bottom of the rabbit hole. That's when the real bombshell dropped. I needed a face. I needed to know who Chloe was. I opened Instagram, created a blank burner account in under 2 minutes, and searched Mark's followers. His account was private, but it didn't matter. I typed Chloe into the search bar, cross-referencing anyone who followed his employer's corporate page. Within 5 minutes, a profile appeared. Chloe Vance. I stared at the surname. Vance. Richard Vance was the CEO of the tech firm where Mark worked as an executive sales director. Mark was sleeping with the CEO's daughter. He was proposing to the CEO's daughter. Her profile was public. I clicked on her grid, my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. It was a digital shrine to my husband. There were pictures of them at vineyards, pictures of them on yachts, pictures of them kissing in front of the very glass cabin Ingrid had reviewed. The captions were nauseating. My rock, the strongest man I know, my forever. But it was the link in her bio that stopped my heart entirely. It was a GoFundMe link titled, Support for Mark's Sister. I clicked the link. The page loaded, displaying a goal of $50,000. Over $30,000 had already been raised. I forced my eyes to read the campaign description, written by Chloe herself. My amazing fiancé, Mark, carries a heavier burden than anyone knows. His sister, Caitlin, is battling a terminal autoimmune disease. Mark spends every waking moment outside of work supporting her financially and emotionally. He even converted her apartment at 722 Mariposa Way into a private hospice facility to keep her comfortable in her final months. Because of this, we haven't been able to live together, as he needs to be there for her around the clock. Any donation helps ease the medical debt my brave future husband has taken on. I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt hunted. I felt legally and morally violated in a way that transcended simple infidelity. He hadn't just created a fake life. He had murdered me in his narrative to make himself the tragic hero. He was using our apartment, my home, as a prop in a terminal illness sob story, so he had a built-in excuse for why Chloe could never visit. My mind raced. The hospice facility. The medical debt. I opened a new tab and pulled up our joint tax returns from the previous year, which Mark had filed. I scrolled down to the deductions section. My blood turned to ice. He had claimed 722 Mariposa Way as a charitable care facility to pocket thousands in tax deductions. He was committing federal tax fraud, wire fraud, and corporate embezzlement, all while using my name and my address. I didn't break down. I didn't smash the dishes or shred his clothes. The absolute magnitude of his crimes triggered a terrifying, sociopathic calm within me. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let the planner take the wheel. I opened the Airbnb portal again and navigated back to the message thread with Ingrid. I didn't delete the account. I didn't change the password. I adopted a persona. I channeled the naive, adoring energy of Chloe Vance and began to type. Hi Ingrid. I wrote. It's Chloe, Mark's fiancé. We are still on cloud 9 from our trip. Thank you so much for the beautiful review, and we were so happy to leave the kitchen spotless for you. Mark mentioned that your property has high-definition Nest cams for security. We are putting together a digital scrapbook for our wedding reception, and I was wondering if there was any chance you might have the footage of his proposal on the patio. It would mean the absolute world to us to have that moment captured. I hit send. I sat in the dark, watching the cursor blink, waiting. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The silence of the apartment was deafening, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. Finally, a notification popped up. Ingrid had replied. Oh, Chloe, congratulations. What a beautiful idea. I usually wipe the security footage every 30 days, but you caught me just in time. Mark was so romantic. I've uploaded the 4K video file to a Dropbox link for you. Wishing you both a lifetime of happiness. I clicked the link. A massive video file began to download. I watched the progress bar inch across the screen, my heart pounding a slow, rhythmic drum against my ribs. When it finished, I opened the file. The video was crystal clear. The Nest cam was mounted perfectly above the patio doors, looking down at the fire pit. There was Mark, wearing the expensive cashmere sweater I had bought him for Christmas, standing nervously amidst a sea of red rose petals. Chloe stepped out onto the patio, covering her mouth in shock. Mark took her hands. I turned the volume all the way up, forcing myself to listen to the audio captured by the outdoor microphone. Chloe, Mark's voice echoed through my living room, smooth and rehearsed. You saved me from the darkness. You've been my light through the hardest year of my life. Watching Caitlin deteriorate has broken me, but knowing I have you to come home to, it gives me the strength to keep going. Once my sister passes away, I promise you, we're moving to London. We'll start fresh. Just you and me. He dropped to one knee, pulling the $5,000 ring he bought with my money out of his pocket. Will you marry me? Chloe collapsed into his arms, weeping, nodding furiously. I paused the video right as their lips met. I stared at his face, frozen in high definition. The sheer manipulation, the effortless lying, the way he casually scheduled my death to fit his relocation plans. It was a masterclass in psychopathy. I closed the video player. I rolled my shoulders, cracked my knuckles, and went to work. Over the next 6 hours, I didn't sleep. I bought a domain name, inlovingmemoryofcaitlin.com. I built a sleek, professional, digital memorial website. On the landing page, I embedded the 4K proposal video, autoplaying on a loop. Directly below the video, I uploaded a high-resolution screenshot of Ingrid's glowing Airbnb review, specifically highlighting the names Mark and Chloe. But I didn't stop at the infidelity. I added a section titled, The Financial Legacy. I spent hours compiling a flawless, color-coded Excel spreadsheet. I documented every single dollar he had stolen from my corporate card, cross-referencing the dates with his business trips. I uploaded screenshots of the GoFundMe page alongside our fraudulent joint tax returns, highlighting the charitable care facility deduction for our apartment. I created a comprehensive, irrefutable digital dossier of a man who was systematically defrauding his company, his fiancée, the IRS, and his wife. When the sun finally began to rise, casting a pale, gray light through the living room blinds, the website was live. I spent the rest of the day meticulously setting the stage. I went to a local print shop and had Ingrid's Airbnb review printed on high-quality, glossy photo paper. I bought a heavy, black mahogany frame and mounted it directly in the center of the living room wall, right above the television. Next, I went into Mark's home office. I bypassed his decoy liquor cabinet and went straight to the false bottom of his filing drawer, a hiding spot I had known about for years but never cared to mention. I pulled out the second bottle of the 1996 Bordeaux he had acquired, undoubtedly saving it to toast to my eventual passing. I uncorked it, poured myself a generous glass, and set an iPad on the coffee table, locking the screen so the proposal video played on a continuous, inescapable loop. At 6:15 p.m., I heard the heavy thud of the hallway door closing. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Keys jingled in the lock. I sat back on the sofa, crossing my legs, resting the bowl of the wine glass against my knee. The door swung open. Mark walked in, loosening his tie, a look of faux exhaustion plastered across his handsome face. He dropped his leather briefcase by the console table and let out a heavy sigh. "Hey, babe," he called out, not looking up as he kicked off his shoes. "Brutal day at the office. Richard is riding my ass about the Q3 projections." He walked into the living room, stopping dead in his tracks. The apartment was dark, save for the glow of the iPad on the coffee table and a single floor lamp illuminating the framed review on the wall. The sound of his own voice, echoing from the tablet speakers, filled the room. "Once my sister passes away, I promise you, we're moving to London." Mark stood paralyzed. His eyes darted from the iPad, to the framed Airbnb review on the wall, and finally, to me, sitting in the shadows with his stolen wine. The color drained from his face so fast he looked physically ill. The charismatic executive vanished, replaced by a terrified, cornered animal. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice cracking, completely devoid of its usual arrogant bass. "Just a ghost enjoying a glass of wine," I replied, my voice steady, cold, and razor-sharp. I took a slow, deliberate sip of the Bordeaux. "It has a lovely finish, Mark. I can see why you bought two." He lunged toward the coffee table, snatching the iPad and fumbling to turn off the screen. "Caitlin, please, you don't understand," he stammered, his hands shaking violently as the video refused to close. "I can explain. It's not what it looks like. Understand?" I laughed, a sharp, hollow sound that echoed off the living room walls. "Oh, I think I understand perfectly, Mark. I'm practically dead, after all. I shouldn't even be capable of understanding complex tax fraud. It was just a mistake," he pleaded, reaching a hand out toward me, taking a step forward. "It was a stupid, drunken mistake, I swear to God." "Mistakes are leaving the stove on, Mark," I hissed, leaning forward, the glass of wine trembling slightly in my grip as the sheer force of my anger finally breached the surface. "You don't accidentally buy a $5,000 diamond on your terminally ill sister's corporate credit card. You don't accidentally deduct our living room as a hospice facility on your federal taxes. You didn't make a mistake. You drafted a business plan." "Please, Kate," he begged, falling to his knees on the rug. Actual tears were welling in his eyes now, though I knew he was weeping for himself, not for me. "I'll end it. I'll call her right now and end it. Just take the video down, please." I stared down at him, a pathetic, weeping mess ruining his tailored suit on my floor. I picked up my laptop from the cushion beside me and opened it. "I'm afraid the website is already live, Mark," I said softly, my fingers resting on the trackpad. I had an email drafted. The recipients were BCC'd. The list included Richard Vance, the entire board of directors at his tech firm, the company's head of human resources, and my corporate fraud department. The subject line read, "Corporate Audit, Embezzlement and Ethical Breach at 722 Mariposa Way." The body of the email contained a single link to the memorial website. "Caitlin, don't do this," he sobbed, scrambling forward, trying to grab my knees. "It'll ruin me. Richard will destroy me. You'll go to jail for hacking my accounts." "It's a shared account, Mark," I whispered, looking him dead in the eyes. "I'm the primary. You really should have paid more attention to the infrastructure." I pressed my thumb down on the trackpad. "Send." I closed the laptop with a sharp snap. From the folder resting beneath the computer, I pulled out a thick stack of documents and tossed them onto the coffee table. They landed with a heavy, satisfying thud, right next to the silenced iPad. "Those are the divorce papers," I said, my voice dropping to a terrifyingly calm register. "And beneath them is a copy of the notice of criminal complaint I filed with the police this morning regarding the credit card fraud." I also forwarded the GoFundMe details to the state attorney general's office. Mark stared at the papers, his mouth opening and closing silently like a suffocating fish. The reality of his absolute destruction was finally washing over him, dismantling his ego piece by piece. I stood up, towering over him. I smoothed the wrinkles from my skirt and walked toward the hallway, grabbing my coat from the rack. I turned back to look at him one last time, taking in the ruin of the man I had wasted 8 years of my life serving. "Ingrid was right," I said, my voice echoing in the sudden silence of the apartment. "You really did leave that cabin spotless. It's a shame you left your digital life so filthy." He didn't move. He just stared at the floor, shivering. "I've already called Chloe's father," I continued, savoring the final twist of the knife. "He read the email. He watched the video. He's waiting for you at the office right now, Mark. He wants to discuss the sister you've been supporting with his company's money." I opened the front door, the cool air from the hallway rushing in to clear the suffocating tension in the room. "Oh, and Mark," I said, pausing in the doorway, "the Uber for your stuff is outside. I packed your bags while you were at work. I told the driver your name was Chloe, just to keep things simple." I pulled the door shut behind me, the heavy latch clicking firmly into place, locking him inside the very tomb he had built for me. Am I the monster here for burning his entire existence to ash, or did he get exactly what he deserved?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.